Welcome to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. We are really glad you found us. In this podcast, me, Simon, a funeral director,
and me, Tina, I'm an independent celebrant.
we discuss all things funeral in an informal space to demystify what happens when we say goodbye.
Based on your questions and queries, Si and myself are two industry professionals that are going to chat through the hows, whats and wherefores. We actively work in the funeral industry in Devon in the UK. So we hope you enjoy the episode ahead. Welcome to Good Goodbyes.
Hello and welcome to Good Goodbyes with me, Si.
And me, Tina.
Today we are going to talk about silence. Now that might sound like a fairly straightforward subject, but in the context of a funeral, I think silence holds a really important part of the service. And Tina, I know that quite often in services you've taken, that you'll have that little moment of quiet, that little moment of reflection. But I think we can go further on from that as well, can't we?
Yeah, because there's two kind of ways I was going to talk about silence and what you and I might have both experienced, Si. And one is that when somebody like myself or a minister or Simon are talking to you, if you're a family member, and you're in our offices or we come to see you at home or whatever, there might be moments that we'll just leave an intentional silence. And it could be because we're just taking a pause and we're giving you time to think because it's a lot of information. And I would say to fellow funeral practitioners and professionals, there's a lot of power in a silence, and never feel awkward in a silence. We have this thing in the UK particularly, I think, where we get quite awkward if there's a silence. We've got to jump in and fill that moment. But when I'm working with families, I bet you find the same, Si. I often do leave a bit of quiet time or a silence because they're just thinking it through.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because silence in itself is an interrogation tactic. So people, like you said, want to fill that silence, want to continue to talk. And sometimes if someone is struggling or someone is not getting out the information that you're trying to get from them, not rushing, not trying to give them another question to answer, just waiting, giving them 5 seconds more, 10 seconds more. People don't, like you said, people don't like silence and will try and fill it. And it often kicks their brain into gear and makes them think of what they want to say, but it gives them space to do that as well. So I think it's a very powerful tool, certainly, especially when we're trying to get to the specifics of a service and the specifics of a person, because it can be overwhelming. So people do need a minute.
Yeah. And sometimes you can see people doing certain things like non-verbally in that moment of quiet. Sometimes they could be trying to search their brains for the answer, or they might be just trying a bit of emotional containment, I call it, where you can see they perhaps are going to cry and they don't want to. So they're just trying to hold themselves together, would be a phrase that you sometimes hear. And like you say, Si, sometimes I think you've just asked them a question that's kind of flummoxed them. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. So it's quite good, isn't it? To sometimes just leave a little bit of space. So that's one of the ways that I think silence is used, isn't it? But also, as you say, in a service. So sometimes people think they've got to cram a service or a ceremony with lots of words or music. But I know you were saying you've seen services where there hasn't been a lot of input, content, I suppose.
Yeah, and I've taken services, not silent because they've just had music, but where the families have just had 2 or 3 pieces of music in the background, very low, and they've said nothing. They have just been present, been there in the moment, reflected, and that's been their goodbye. And it's very powerful. It's very, very powerful. It's certainly not for everyone to have have nothing said, but certainly in most services, I would say there's certainly a pause for reflection, a time to bring your own memories to the front.
Yeah. Because some people do that to a piece of music and that moment of reflection, but I've certainly seen people do it to just a moment of respectful silence. And then, you know, those of us who kind of, and it's coming up at this time of year in the UK, you know, when we have that remembrance service and that minute of silence, some people, it seems like a chasm of time.
Yeah.
Kind of be quiet and thoughtful for that respectful moment. But if I'm asked by family, like, how long then, if we want a silence, shall we have? You know, a minute is a really okay period of time.
Yeah.
And some people have longer, and that's okay too. And I went to a Quaker service once, and I know in that faith, there's often nothing particularly formal, but they will just introduce while you're there. Somebody will say something, and then we sit in a contemplative kind of silence until somebody wants to break the silence and say something. And and that's quite interesting to experience. I've experienced that.
Yeah. Having been at Wembley Stadium when there was a minute silence before a game, that is so powerful. 90,000 people saying nothing. It's quite eerie, actually. It's quite incredible. And I think when you're in a service hall with family, friends, the congregation, whoever it may be, that palpable sense across the room of all the focus, all those minds are on that person. It's very special, actually, and can be very powerful.
Yeah, I really like what you've said. And I think in the modern world, there aren't really many times that we just are completely quiet for no other reason than that we are giving our thoughts to a person. So, yeah, I think kind of probably in a nutshell, that's all I was going to say about silence and holding those kind of quiet spaces. But anything you want to add, Simon?
Yeah, I think just don't be scared of it. I think that, you said it very, very well, Tina. People try and fill every minute. And you hear it all the time. I've got very little memory of it. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember what was said. And families afterwards saying, it went by in a blur. Well, sometimes that minute or two to gather yourself can be quite beneficial in that way as well. So, don't be afraid of the silence. Don't be afraid to use it, because you can't get every memory of a person into a service, and the people sat in the congregation aren't going to hear the exact version of the person that they knew. So having an opportunity for them as an individual to reflect in their own way and bring their own memories is certainly something that gives a little bit of personalization without saying anything. I think it's a funny way of putting it, but probably right.
And we're not all outgoing, are we? Some of us are quieter humans. We don't sensitive or quieter souls, even though the outgoing ones can be quite sensitive. But some people just listen more than they speak, and so for that group of people, I think that quiet time is really helpful.
Very true. Very true. There we go. That was a little bit of a bite size, but it's probably longer than a bite size, but a really good overview of what we mean by silence. Because a useful tool, but a powerful message as well. Perfect. Thanks for joining us on Good Goobyes today, and we will catch you at the next one. You've been listening to Good Goobyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Drop any questions on our social media, on Instagram, or in the text option in the show notes.
Si and I are qualified professionals, but we always advise our clients to seek any additional support from medical practitioners if they need to. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well and be kind to one another.